So welcome everybody to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio, and today is Thursday, August the 4th, 2022, and our call-in number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. We'll give Michael a moment to dial in. I've been working with Susan Giles in Florida. She's helping me. She's revamping the shop on the website, and that's looking really good. You all can't see it yet because I can go in through the back door, and we're making some adjustments. So that should be live here in a few days. And I just invite you to, if you haven't downloaded the app yet, to download it or update it on your phone. And it's got a couple different worksheets. It has the Drag On Clean On game for kids, and it has the commitments, linked to events and to more information. There's just lots and lots of information, and you can ask a question from any page on the app, and then we will respond back to you. We will answer it on the radio show and let you know what day and time we addressed your question. So we invite you to do that. Michael, I'll welcome you to the show, and we've got two hands up.
Awesome. Well, let's go for the hands.
All right. The first one is
let's say hello.
7760. You're on the air.
Hey, actually, I put my hand up at the same time Susan did, but if God would have it, she needed to be ahead of me anyway, to talk to Dr. Tim and then get his response on what's going on with her feelings and stuff. But I'll ask this. My fever is 24 hours, the same, normal. So we can't get a hold of the ivermectin, so I'm going to do the hydroxychloroquine because the stamina is not there and the cough is still hanging on. But I'm feeling much better. But
good.
What I wanted to ask was what Dr. Tim was talking about that relates to this friend that I, as it were, I start to say this in my thoughts, and now I started to say it out loud and go, okay, I'm choosing to say it different. I'm practicing learning to saying things differently because there would be a don't in there, is that all of this happened with me. It was divine appointment. So, because it pushed me, to do the sinus rinse for one thing that I've been putting off for a whole year probably. And to look at things differently about taking care of myself. Okay to take care of somebody else, but then you have to take care of yourself while you're taking care of somebody else. So this friend with beginning dementia and stuff, I'm just saying that it's got all this medical, thing, mild, blah, 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 with the gray matter, blah, blah, blah. But I started looking at the grateful things, and the grateful thing is that the granddaughter finally got there, on Monday, and that the granddaughters are working together better. So that's another great outcome, since I'm, done with what I'm doing right now. And it was almost like, okay, you get this rest because this is what happens. And since you're not doing it yourself, guess what? I'll help you a little bit. So I'm seeing it as, what's supposed to happen. The question I have, and I don't know, Michael, if you can answer this, it has to do with all this brain stuff, but I know you have some knowledge. Okay. When, part of the stuff that we're learning from the Way of Mastery, which, is to, think of things differently. So the 6 days out of the 7 that I was over there on a regular basis, not spending the whole day because I didn't have a whole day, was cleaning up poop from this dog because she wasn't cleaning it up. And what it turns out that I found out the rest of the story. I had a suspicion she was feeding it human food. Because when I used to, a couple of weeks ago, when I helped out or other times, when I took the dog out to go to the bathroom, it was solid. Well, this was not happening, and so she was doing it, and then she was doing this in the middle of the morning or sometime, and my friend wasn't getting up to let her out on the porch. You've got puppy pads out there, because she's in a trailer. Anyway, it wasn't happening. So in the morning, there'd be poop in a couple of different places there. So I blocked off the bedroom finally, so that she couldn't go in there.
We probably don't need all the. We probably don't need all the poop details. We can go to the bottom line of the question, maybe.
Okay, so the bottom line is, when I was trying to reason with her why we were going to be giving the dog away, because her granddaughters had already presented that fact, okay, or that needed to happen. And then once the granddaughter now is there with her, definitely she has a toddler, and it can't continue to happen. When I presented that to my friend, there was no reasoning. I mean, like, she didn't get that this can't continue. And so then the other day when she called me, which I'm not sure she meant to, but she did, and she has issues with the phone knowing about, I explained to her, because she said, oh, everybody hates the dog, everybody's against me, with the dog. And I brought up the whole stuff that the dog was doing, and she said, well, you could have just left it. And I said, Nancy, why would I do that? I love you. I said, I would definitely not leave that there. So, I mean, what's happening in their brain where they're not getting the connection?
Yeah. So if you've ever watched somebody in an argument and they're under high levels of stress, they have many goals that are not being achieved, there's no reasoning. Yeah. Most people don't reason in the first place. Most people, it's just resonance. It's whatever's firing in brain cells is their answer. But then, remember, when you go to higher levels of stress, become ultra stressed, now you kick in the power person dynamic. And in most cases, we're going back to a childhood interaction with a person who had significantly more power over their lives than they did. And if that person was an abusive type power person, then there was no reasoning with the power person. There was just, my word is it, and everything the mind, remember, when you have a goal, the mind's purpose is to show you how to fulfill the goal. So in most cases where a power person is trying to run a child, the only answer is what the power person has. And of course, the child hates it when the power person relentlessly, this is the only answer. But then 50, 70, 90 years later, under high levels of stress, that person will do what their power person did to them that they hated the most. And this is the only answer, they'll just replicate that. And there's no reasoning with that. It's just, until you can get somebody to start to cancel some goals and make space. Remember, that's just a little tiny, that Harvard research that says that in that time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing, we've got room for 9 bits of data. If that thing is filled with, this is the only answer, this is what my power person did to me repeatedly, then there's no reasoning until they can step back and choose to honor truth and start to let go of some of those goals.
Well, okay, so then in this dementia state, which is on and off, at one point a statement that before the granddaughter came, she made a statement to me, and then when I talked to her the last time, though, she denied it, was that, I decided it's selfish to not let the dog go because she can't pick her up anymore either, and she's only 12 pounds, so she wasn't being able to pick her up and put her up on the bed, although sometimes the dog would get up there, that's fine. But so she was using always that as an example. Well, she's here with me right now. Well, okay. Again, like you said, they pull out anything they can to reason back why this should not happen.
Yeah.
But
I
yes,
want this
so
goal fulfilled, and that's it.
Okay, so but at one point then, so what is the brain like in and out of reasoning? Because that whole sentence, it was beautiful. I said, and I supported her on that. I said, oh, that's great that you see that, you know, that it was a selfish. I didn't come up with the word selfish, so I was quite surprised when she said that. But then now we're back to, so is there skips in the, what's going on?
What goals are, you can, if you find a mind that is, just one, there's only one channel possible, it's because there's only one goal being held. However, if that goal will change, someone who's on that one track, and then you say, well, gee, we really need to think about your health because we don't need this mess in the house. Then their mind shifts into, oh, I have another goal. I need to think about my health. Oh, yeah. Well, now I can go back to different data. But if something triggers that goal of, I want my dog and that's it, and I have a power person test that, the power person, there's only one answer, and that's the answer that the power person has, the tendency will be that's what they're going to stick to. That's why oftentimes distraction will work. Susan has shared with us in her interaction with her grandson that oftentimes, he's on a roll with something on a negative event, and she can just mention something different, triggers a different set of goals, and all of a sudden that old mindset is just disappeared. And so I think quite likely that's what you'd be seeing happening.
Yeah, and that was true. When I was there in person, over the phone, it doesn't work as well because she can hang up like she did the other day. When she called back, that I think she accidentally, the phone is usually on her bed, so it's a couch that's pulled out in the living room. Anyway, she accidentally called because I said, when she answered, I said, well, hello. And I said, did you just call? She said, no. Anyway, she was watching the old Western things or anything. So that's what we talked about. Because, and you know what? Yeah, it was fine. Great conversation, right? But I knew that would help it. What I'm getting is I know about her past with her first husband, and there was abuse, sexual abuse and other abuses. And when I think about each of us coming, like you said, inundating her with, this is what needs to happen, that he was the power person over her. And yeah, so he kept saying, right? And what was her defense? Because of course she didn't know about all this. And now we're doing the same thing in a sense. I think she's thinking that, and so it's like, no, she knows to stand up for herself, right? Is that, am I picking up on that?
There might be room to help to create a quiet space, letting go of goals, maybe even, guide her into a meditation where you offer her thoughts that there is not normally room for because she's busy with other goals, but getting into a quiet space and offering her some other supportive type thoughts that are hard for her to think on her own, especially, the whole power person dynamic is just exacerbated by dementia. That's just creates a whole other level of difficulty in breaking through. But some quiet time, maybe making part of your time with her, just, getting quiet and centering and thinking about her well-being and her state of love, who she is, might be helpful in bringing her into a more cooperative state.
Right. Well, her granddaughter is there now, and I need to get through the rest of the COVID symptoms before I go back over there and help, because I do want to share with the girls so that when they go to the doctor's appointment, with her, that they're aware of what I've observed and help them say, hey, have you been observing this? And this is where, just share my observations with them. But, because she is a believer, and so I know I can bring up, stuff back in the Bible and just things that have to do with that, because she loves, the music, the worship music, songs and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of like what happened. Go ahead.
Does she have an actual medical diagnosis? Dementia, Alzheimer's? What is her diagnosis?
Yeah, I don't have the report in front of me, but they did an MRI, because what happened was when she went into the doctor's office, this was been, 2 months ago now. The doctor prescribed it because she failed the doctor's office gives a test, I guess, for Alzheimer's, and she didn't pass it. So that's why she was referred to get an MRI. And so the MRI report is there, and that's the one I says it's the medical lingo. And when I went to the doctor with her, she said something about the gray matter, but the word that I get in the summary from the report when I read it again recently was before I, started my stuff, was mild, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, if it is, that's why I say beginning dementia, beginning, whatever, until they can put it in layman's terms with the granddaughters, because I could follow a little bit of what the doctor was saying, but to write it down in layman's terms, I don't want to write it down from my perspective, because I don't remember exactly the words, but the report is there, so they have that. I was able to find that when I was, it's a mess in there, and that's what I started out doing, was finding papers for them, but now the other girl is there, so, yeah.
Right. Well, if it is Alzheimer's, there are some physicians that have coined a term, type 3 diabetes. We've got type 1, people are born with type 2, and then there's type 3 diabetes that I don't know that it's officially accepted or not at this point, but basically the alternative term for Alzheimer's for some physicians has become type 3 diabetes. And what they've found is that with type 3 diabetes, perhaps with all Alzheimer's, there is not insulin in the brain. And in order to get sugar, the fuel that the brain cell uses to function is sugar, and you have to have insulin to take the sugar into the cell. And if there's no insulin, then sugar's not getting into the cell, and the brain cell dysfunctions. Well, they found there's a powder called MCT oil powder, which you can buy very inexpensively at, probably any health food store, or you can buy it on Amazon. It's relatively cheap, and we've seen a significant difference in Jeannie's dad, who had an Alzheimer's diagnosis, since he started using it. And basically what happens is the MCT powder is an oil, the fat, the brain, there's a lot of fat in the brain, and I think sometimes what they call them fatheads. But what they found is that when people are taking this MCT oil on a regular basis, the brain can use that as fuel without insulin. So it burns it directly. Doesn't need the insulin to take it in and make the brain cell function. And so we've seen a pretty significant difference. I mean, Jeannie's dad was, and we don't know how much was the COVID that he had and such, but we definitely noticed a difference. And he's been on the MCT oil now for several months. And when we were there yesterday, or Jeannie was there yesterday and we were there the day before, he's quite cognizant and quite involved in the conversation, and quite chipper, and actually playing and joking, and, a pretty high level of comprehension. And for a long time, we just didn't have any of that. Now, I can't say 100% that it was that, but it was about the time we started giving him the MCT oil that we noticed that difference. So coconut oil, unrefined organic coconut oil can do the same thing.
Yeah, I had
so that might be a cheap
thing.
Yeah, it might be a cheap thing to suggest that she start to give her mom on a regular daily basis. I mean, a 2-pound, container is about $30, so a 2-pound container lasts for a while. It might be something to at least try. You go through a container of it and see if there's a difference. It's relatively cheap.
You're saying MCT like Tom?
M as in Michael, C as in cat,
right.
T as in Tom. MCT powder, oil powder. Yeah.
Oil powder.
If you'd like, I'll go ahead and send you a link to it on text. You get text on this phone, right?
Yes. I remember here in Florida, there was a doctor just over here, I think in Citrus County, that did this coconut oil with her husband, and she showed,
right.
Haven't been able to find the papers yet, she showed him drawing a clock before, she started that protocol, and then she showed him drawing a picture of a clock after that,
Yep.
And it was like night and day.
Night and day, yes.
I can't remember how long it was, over what period of time, but you don't ever
right.
hear of it.
Yeah, well, there's no money in it. There's no money in it.
Okay.
So.
I know.
And Jeanie, I'm sending you a link.
Okay, all right. I think I felt it come to my phone. What was the other question? And I think you told me that the other day, and my brain cells are firing a little slower. So as you started to say that, I just, that's what you're talking about.
Cool. Well, it's worth, 30. I just sent you the link. It's £2 for $33. It's pretty cheap. And Jeanie, I just sent you an email with a link to it too, so you can put it in the notes.
Okay. And Dad's is actually Parkinson's, dementia, not Alzheimer's, but they're very much the same.
Right.
Right. That's what my mom had, was the dementia, Parkinson's. But that was, just in the last, when she was in the 90s, 98. And so that was just starting. But that was what the neurologist said. The only thing he said to me when I took her in and they did the scan and stuff right there in their office was, quit reasoning. I mean, when I shared what was going on and how I was, how she was acting and talking and I was talking, and that was the only thing he told me, just quit reasoning. That was it. And I go, okay, so that's coming back to me, and that's what made me think about these questions about the whole reasoning thing. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, the brain's compromised.
All right, thank you.
All right, young lady. Well, any other thoughts for you today?
No, thank you so much. Blessings.
All right. Well, holding the space for a quick healing and getting through and reinforcing your immunity to COVID and holding you in our hearts. Blessings.
Yep, thanks.
All right. And Miss Jeanie, you've got another hand up.
Well, it actually went back down, so I didn't catch which number it was. So if you're still on the switchboard and you still have a question, still want to talk, press 1 again.
Let's say hello. How can we support you? What's on your mind? And if that other hand isn't going up, I have a poem I'd like to read.
Okay, it's not, so go for it.
Okay. Well, I come across this yesterday, and it was written, it is identified only as written by someone named Mama B, so I don't know exactly who wrote it, but it seemed like, oh, pardon me, wait a minute, here it is. Oh. Actually, I just see in another part of the poem is an attribution to Rosemary Traumer. So thank you, Rosemary, for this. And it just, for me, it struck a note of being in a space of compassion for people who are in pain and aberrant behavior. And, if you look at the whole Western so-called Christianity, the focal point in its origins was about how to restore oneself as functioning as love. Unfortunately, a lot of fear-based dogma and doctrine have stepped into it And so now that kind of oftentimes becomes kind of a background conversation, and hostility and rage and threats from preachers to people who do things they don't agree with. Those sorts of things become quite common. It's like, what happened to the love? And it's interesting that the Buddhist tradition looks to bringing forward, at least as I perceive it, when you realize that the created essence of a human being is love, if you can bring love into activity, if you can get it through the mind's programming and get active love to show up in the mind, to become the fuel for the mind, everything in someone's life changes. Well, the Buddhist tradition takes a different path, and there's a different aspect of being, of that created essence, that is called compassion. And so the Buddhist trek is to develop compassion, and I see them as complementary and parallel paths. Compassion is another aspect of the state of our created essence, love. Love is compassion as well. And so there's a different perspective there, and this woman's poem just struck me as very powerful at tapping into that state of compassion. So she writes, the title of it is Watching My Friend Pretend Her Heart is Not Breaking. I kind of see it as the weight of grief. On Earth, just a teaspoon of a neutron star would weigh 6 billion tons. At least that's according to the world of physics. 6 billion tons equals the collective weight of every animal on Earth. Now, I'm not sure who figured out either of those numbers, but that's where she starts with this. So 6 billion tons equals the collective weight of every animal on Earth, including the insects, times 3. So if we took all of the animals on Earth, all the insects on Earth, tripled their weight, we'd have the weight of, according to physicists, 1 teaspoon of a neutron star. 6 billion tons sounds impossible until I consider how it is to swallow grief. Just a teaspoon, and one might as well have consumed a neutron star. How dense it is, how it carries inside it the memory of collapse, how difficult it is to move then, how impossible to believe that anything could lift that weight. There are many reasons to treat each other with great tenderness. One is the sheer miracle that we are here together on planet Earth, surrounded by dying stars. One is that we cannot see what anyone else has swallowed. Kindness, compassion, empathy, and understanding, that of our shared humanness, shall propel us forward. Acceptance of our differences is essential to humanity's progress together and binds us into an invincible force of unity. Drawing us toward our divine destiny of being one. And the other day I spoke about Einstein's idea that if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. And I just see this poem as utilizing compassion and understanding of others as a way to disappear that optical delusion that we are separate, and to recognize that we are all connected, that we are all, in fact, part of one structure. In the same way that there are trillions of individual cells, they are individuated, but they're not separated in one so-called body. So if you look back, and there was a concept in the ancient scriptures, it was called the mystical body of Christ. It seemed a mystery because there wasn't that understanding of how a single human form was made up of trillions of cells. But now that we understand that, we can see that each of us is part of one single energy field, one single expression, and each with our own unique and individual parts in it. And when our expression goes off base, when we forget who we are, when we forget why we're here, we can get off track with living as a space of compassion, with living as a space of love. Now, lest you mistake it for, that doesn't mean that you have to lay down and let somebody stomp on your face if there's somebody around you that's playing the rage game. There's no requirement for that. One can still be held accountable, and held accountable out of a space of compassion, out of a space of concern, and accountable might not be pretty. Somebody approaches you and says, hey, I have a way we can make $1 million. I just got an inside track on a bank that's going to have $1 million sitting in a place where we can go steal it tomorrow. Let's go. And you offer, thank you very much, but that's not my path. I'm not interested in that. And I would suggest you don't do it either. And then out of that space of compassion and concern for the society in general and an orderly society, it might be my job in that situation to pick up the phone and call the police and inform them that this robbery is about to take place. That would be what love would look like. The number of people damaged by the theft of that $1 million for the benefit of one person is a thief. I can have compassion for that person, but it doesn't mean I need to go along with their insanity. It doesn't mean I need to support it. It doesn't mean that, and I don't know what that person's path is. Maybe the reason that they're, at an unconscious level, that they're ready to do a major theft like that is because they need 20 years in prison. I don't know. So accountability, the presence of love and compassion are different things. And one of the ways we can tell which one we're really doing is what's the energy that's moving inside of us. Always, if it's hostility or fear, it's the individual themselves that has work to do. Now, you get two individuals who are in hostility or fear, and of course, each pointing the finger at the other. When one or the other is ready to step back and acknowledge what's theirs, then one can step into doing one's work and still with compassion and love point out at least the perceptions of what's happening, so there's room for communication to occur. So I just thought I'd share that. When I saw that, I thought it was powerful to look at that, looking at the idea of when a star collapses to become a neutron star, the weight of it, according to science, and then equating that with how do we know what this person in front of us has swallowed? What kind of pain, what kind of trauma they're carrying? And can we be a space for their healing? Or in the same, they're not mutually exclusive, or their accountability, whatever that might look like. So I thought I'd share that with you. And if you have any thoughts, if that strikes you at all, push one. Let's have a conversation. If there's anything we can support you with in the use of any of the tools that we offer, it would be awesome to hear your voice. Our call-in number, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, is 563-999-3581. If you dial that number, you'll be listening to the show live. And then if you push 1, that will raise a hand in the control panel, and Jeanie will know that you want to speak to us and introduce you by your area code. So, Miss Jeanie, do we have anyone on the phone here with a hand up? Anything happening in the chat room?
It is all quiet. We have a few new numbers that I don't know who they belong to, and then we have a lot of their regular listeners, so it's good to see them back in. So anybody, whether you're always here with us or whether you're brand new, we'd love to hear from you. We'd like to hear which direction you would like the conversation to go. Can we answer a question? Do you have a comment?
No, the misinterpretations of especially the Aramaic understanding that's presented in the ancient Aramaic language through both the Old and the New Testament, the misinterpretations, the Greek ideas that get injected there are really quite dramatic. And I was doing some research the other day and accidentally came across a website, and it was, to me, it was just flabbergasting to imagine that anybody who could label themselves Christian could conceive of creating such a website, but somehow somebody's mind was able to do this, and the whole website was dedicated to, believe it or not, and I mean, I've just never heard of or it was hard to fathom such a thing, but the whole website was dedicated to vengeance prayers. And the idea that, you know, if there's somebody who had done you wrong or that you were projecting you'd been hurt by, that, and I mean, it was just one after another, these so-called prayers that are appealing to the Creator to get even for you and take vengeance. It was just like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding. Talk about a misinterpretation, thinking that, and of course there is that idea, vengeance is mine, but in that context, in the Aramaic context, it wouldn't be a matter of vengeance. The human idea would be getting even or vengeance, but I can certainly hear that or imagine that the Creator, if one were attuned to the Creator's mind and filtered it through some form of hostility, they could imagine that the fact that, you know, there's this law called sowing and reaping, that if you sow something vicious and violent, then, you know, you're going to reap something vicious and violent. It's kind of, you know, an obvious energetic dynamic that's going to happen. And of course, there is only one power behind it all, moving everything. So I could imagine that someone would see that that result is vengeance and say, oh, so the Creator is doing vengeance. But no, it's simply the way the universe is set up. And, you know, you engage in energy. You know, it's been called karma. And I can assure you, I know about those things. I used to be a used karma salesman. You know, karma is that law of sowing and reaping. And that if you put an energy into the system, it's going to express. You're going to get that energy back from the system. And of course, there's this wondrous tool, which is really a mechanism of grace, in a sense. Grace has been kept, you know, as a kind of a mystery, at least in most circles I'm aware of. It's sort of this mysterious conversation. Grace kind of happens, but actually we were each born in grace. We were each given the ability to change our minds, to engage in a different energy than that which had been sown within our minds. And we were given a tool of forgiveness for removing those energetic patterns based in hostility and fear. And so one can overcome this so-called law of karma by undoing the energetic patterns, this law of sowing and reaping, by undoing the energetic patterns of that which has been sown. And whether it was sown by us or not, perhaps it was something sown in a previous generation. And you look at that idea in the scriptures of, you know, look to, and a lot of people don't, you know, don't make me look, but a lot of people look at that ancient idea of look to the lives of the fathers, for ours is but a shadow of theirs upon the earth. And many people are simply reaping what was sown within their energy fields in previous generations. You know, and we inherited this whole genetic history. You know, psychology is doing some pretty interesting research showing that people who've been through severe trauma, that the children of those people exhibit the same energetic responses to trauma as the parent did. And so to recognize that the willingness to take this absolutely phenomenal, amazing tool of forgiveness. Nothing to do with the Greek idea that I'm going to let you off the hook because there's something moving in me. That's got nothing to do with forgiveness. That's a Greek idea of pardoning. But that forgiveness is the removal of energetic patterns that never belonged. And the genius of how Yeshua instructed on how to access those energetic patterns is just beyond all comprehension in today's world. And that's why we have an app that if you go to your app store and type in the words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness, you'll be looking at the world's only forgiveness app. And with that app, you can engage in the forgiveness process directly there, step by step. And as Jeanie said earlier, there's a link on each page in the app where if you have a question, you can just click that link and zip the question to us, and we'll answer it on the show and send you back a link to when it was answered. But you can actually engage in the... Go ahead, sweetie.
We have a hand up.
Oh, awesome. Let's go for it.
All right. I think it's Miss Julie in Oregon. It's 541. You're on the air.
Hi, it is me. Hi.
Welcome, young lady.
Hi. You're going to hear something going on outside because I'll just come inside in a moment. But anyway, well, I'm not in the experience of what's been going on with me lately quite as deeply, but I wanted to report that amazing things are being learned by this human being. What I mean is that the learning opportunity is always there to practice forgiveness. So what I was focusing on and have reported is that I have been seeing behaviors in my partner for this whole relationship for like 3 or 4 years now, and of course I'm looking at where is that inside me and what is that inside me, and I've been looking at how we resonate each other with our pet peeve aggravations. So, but what I'm really starting to see now is that I don't need to engage with it. Well, what I'm really trying to see, or starting to see, is that, let's see, I'm sitting down now, is that there's a similar resonance, and the way the forms manifest in each of our lives is can be a multiple of possibilities, that it's not the same issue necessarily with each person. Or let me put it this way, maybe each person makes a different reality out of the resonance. And there's a resonance that stems from their own roots, our own roots, my own roots. So, okay, so having said that, and I used the word not a little bit in there, I know, but I'm working on it. So I've been able to rise above these interfering energies by seeing the truth at another level, which is that, and one higher level or next level leads to the next, but that I get resonated with issues in my childhood of not good enough, not doing it right. Let's just put it that way for now. And he gets resonated in nobody ever listens to me or does it right enough, something like that. And so,
right.
So in order to, so it looks like different forms. Each person's having their own experience based on the reality that they're projecting onto the other. And I'm getting this to a point now that I can free myself from it by doing my work, but not just taking the whole responsibility for him too, because right. I tend to be a rescuer and all of that. And how that matched into some of his energy was, in his background is some narcissism, hereditarily speaking, in one of his parents, maybe both. And so I've been looking in my history. Well, gee, was my mom maybe somewhat narcissistic? And so I developed a behavior in response to walking on eggshells around her. Gee, that's an interesting thing to discover. And or my father, what was his form that interaction of resonance between them took, my mother and father. And so it's just so widening for me to see these things. And yes, it is a space of love through which I look. It helps provide a sort of separation of these issues so that I see them clearly instead of being reactive to them. And yet I know there's a oneness, so I'm not separating out like in order to blame, and deny. And I got the words from Spirit yesterday that hear my words, all right? And then I said, well, I always hear your words. I'm always listening, whatever. I said that. And then came the words, my words can be heard even through your denial, which was really big. And I felt comfortable with that because I can be both, I can be aware of both or many tendencies of realities that I hold, and they can be removed. So it's really cool because I don't feel quite like I'm the effect of it, or that my ego is so engaged and triggered that it has to defend itself. And I can be okay with, whatever narcissism is as a label, knowing that it's just something to be healed in the opportunity of me and my boyfriend having a relationship, even if I can't explain it all to him. So it's bypassing that need too. Okay, I think I'm complete for now.
So my offering would be, if you remember back in the Codependency, Independence Intensive that you did, we did a section on healing through relationships. And remember that the attraction in relationships is often just through pure resonance, and that aspect of relationship can tend to at least have a component that is matching bags of garbage. In fact, you might find it useful to start going back and reviewing. You've got all of those videos from the intensive. You might find it useful to go back and start reviewing those again. But recognizing that through resonance, the number one purpose of life is to heal us and bring us into full expression. And one of the ways that happens, if we've developed a lifestyle of living in denial and dissociation, is that somebody's going to show up to kick us in the limitation, to show us what we're holding on to. And when I finally confront the truth that, I'm feeling this must be mine, then I can begin to disassemble that. And as I disassemble or forgive that, the attraction based in matching bags of garbage tends to start to fade away, and it becomes one more based in connectedness through being and achieving that state of unity, that state of oneness. So that'd be my highest thought for you at this point.
Yeah, and you know what it is? When you were speaking, when I had said separate, like it separates out. It's kind of like, I guess, like molecules, like let's say oil and water. And if you shake up the bottle or the container, you can see the separation of the oil floating through the water until it rises to the top. And so there's this suspended animation of potentiality that I can see. Am I going to use this situation of matching energies to conveniently blame the other person? And I know I had that tendency growing up. There was a phrase in my family, so you're you come out smelling like a rose, you know. And so I learned how to do that, how to make myself look good and let the other person take all the blame. And so that's, you know, something that, anyway, so it's distilling out now the factors, you know, without the judgmental energy. And so I can recognize when he may be blaming me and, you know, trying to, you know, bring out his evidential mind, you know, and tell me the long list of all the things that are wrong with me. And I just could, you know, I don't even choose any one of them to defend myself. I just listen and be there with myself also as a space of love, you know, and so what I've learned about narcissism too is that you know, a lot of times that person who's in that resonance at the time is really trying to fuel themselves with energy, like, you know, that's sort of a strategy, unconscious, I'm sure, to get energy and get someone engaged and get somebody to, you know, be distracted or persuaded in some way. And so I don't have to do that anymore. I just said don't. But instead of doing that, which I recognize as from my childhood patterns of coping with my parents or what form it took in the times that it needed to take form, I managed a behavior in order to get along and survive with my power person. And so now I have different choices, and I just look to Spirit and Luca to assist me. And I find that I'm doing a lot of breathing and letting go of just the energy, you know, the anxiety in my body, and just staying focused on my task at hand, for example, and
right.
letting myself be motivated by myself and my own goals instead of the goals my power persons had for me, to do it right, do it perfect, and by the way, do what I want, not what you want, and in that interruptive energy. So
right.
This is a miracle. It's a miracle for me.
Nice work.
Yeah.
Comes that it would be useful to dig out the 3 early memories exercise. And I know that you've been in workshops several times where you've done that, and I don't know if you kept your paperwork, but it might be interesting to go back and find every time you've done that 3 early memories exercise in the Healing Through Relationships workshop. And just remember, one of the things we've talked a lot about is developing the ability to become the thinker apart from your thought, the feeler apart from your feelings, the actor apart from your actions. Just step back and observe your mind in operation. And you may find that if you've got a few of those 3 early memories exercises, that it will help you to put in context the healing opportunities that are coming up now for you, and give you another level of support in being able to just dissolve that energy.
Okay, thank you. You said that in the nick of time. I'm going to consider it a message from Spirit because I am throwing away stuff, and I was conjuring up enough energetic behavior to dump a lot of those papers because there's so many and I need to get rid of things, right? So I've convinced myself of an outside of myself power person goal being held for me instead of those are valuable to me. They're a little chaotic. They're all over the place in many boxes, having moved many times. However, there's an order inside me that, just like you pointed to, that is coming into congruence with my true reality, and I'm just blessing and releasing and forgiving the ones that are unwanted, that are unlike love. So I can do it in the present moment without all my past paperwork, but still refer to it like you just said.
Yeah, and again, with the fact that you're heading to Spain, that's a lot of paper to carry, and I think we had this conversation, a simple scanner,
yeah.
and you can scan those things, and, they're in your computer, and they take no room at all. And you've got all of that history. Yes.
Michael, technology is great, and I'll see how much time I have to do that scanning and all the music and all the stuff that I think is important to hang on to. See,
Sure.
That's a new skill
and
for
you
me
could
to
get
learn.
creative. Yeah, and you could get creative. For instance, maybe like kids are so great with technology. Maybe you've got a student that really is not in a position where they can afford that music lesson, but would be delighted to take music lessons in exchange for scanning those for you. Or even showing you how to work, you can set it in files and make it useful. So who knows? There are lots of creative ways. Some kid could benefit and would love to help scan that stuff, and lots of ways to bring it about. Just another thought.
Okay, thank you. You're right. I do have students, but I need to organize and manage it. So I'll just let Ruka guide me on that, and I'll hold them. I love those notes. I don't really want to throw them away. So so thank you.
I understand it's valuable.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Cool.
And it isn't all that chaotic because I am a technology myself, and so
cool.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I've got it all archived somewhere, and I know it comes up again and again. So, however, all of that work is an advance that I've made in life, and it's a furthering package of material to preserve or just value.
Well, the benefit, and I'm saying this, I'm saying this from my experience, is that when I go back to my old notes, one, I'm often shocked that I knew that way back then, and two, it now has a whole different gift to give me because I've, that having been part of my past, I've built more brain cells in a given arena, and so out of that note that I wrote 35 years ago that I look at and go, I don't even remember knowing that, all of a sudden I've got a whole new insight and a whole new gift, which, can be pretty awesome.
Thank you. You're right.
Awesome.
Yes. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
We're down to the last minute.
Okay.
So we'll hold space that the next level of your work happens and that your preparation and motion toward your move to Spain is easy and gently done. And hold you in our heart.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Blessings. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Good breath. All right, everybody. Thanks for being with us. Create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. And blessings. Bye-bye.